Hello and welcome to Roofers Coffee Shop RLW, Read, Listen, Watch, our ongoing educational program that allows all of you out there to listen to the educational materials, to read it, to watch it, and it all starts right here today with this fantastic webinar with Western Colloid. My name is Heidi Ellsworth and I'm an RCS partner. I'm here today with Greg Hlavaty and Tim Ford from Western Colloid, and we're going to be talking about 3 invaluable tips for a successful coating systems installation. But first, let's go over a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be muted, but feel free to ask questions or comment in the comment area, which is over on the hopefully right side of your screen in the chat area or in the question area. At the end of the webinar, we will have Q&A, so we will be bringing those back and our guests will be answering any of your questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be available online to view, listen, or read as part of our RLW series. So be sure to share this with other roofing professionals who you're working with, who's in your office or in your company. So now we are going to go ahead and get started. As I said, today we will be having Greg Hlavaty, President of Western Colloid, and Tim Ford, Field and Application Technical Director with Western Colloid, helping us with invaluable tips for successful coating systems and installations. As all of you know, coatings are hot. This is the product, the roofing product right now that building owners are looking for, restoring roofs. Really, it has taken the lead in the industry. So I'm very excited for these gentlemen to share with all of you some really invaluable tips to make your business more profitable and your operations seamless. First of all, I would like to introduce Greg. Greg is president of Western Colloid and has been a licensed contractor since the early 1980s. When I was just talking to him, I love the fact that he has been working in the roof coatings industry since he was 12 years old. That is just so cool. And he's worked on all sides of the business, including contracting, distribution, and manufacturing. We also have the honor to work with him as president of the Roof Coatings Manufacturers Association, who Roofers Coffee Shop works with to help promote all the great stuff that they're doing. He is the president of RCMA and works on countless committees and task force to really promote roof coatings within the industry and the overall. He also has received the prestigious Martin A. Davis Industry Leadership Award in 2016, and really his commitment to helping contractors is known industry-wide. So Greg, welcome to this RLW and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's been looking forward to it. I love
this is gonna be great.
Sharing
a great day. Perfect. Well, and then I'd also like to introduce our other guest, Tim Ford. Tim is the Field Application Technical Director for Western Colloid. With 30 years of experience as a roofing contractor, and I think you're all hearing a theme here from Western Colloid, Tim knows coatings. He has brought a wealth of experience in the last 7 years to Western Colloid, and is responsible for most of the training and inspections that goes on at Western Colloid. It's important to, as Tim is out there, he has a passion that he has been sharing with other contractors and with the industry as a whole on really how to do it right. And so that's what they're going to share with us today. So, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started. And what I'd like to do right up front is, Greg, would you share with all of our audience and everyone listening about Western Colloid, a little bit about your company and everything that you're doing?
Well, Western Colloid is a manufacturer of roof coatings and specifically roof coating systems. We've been around for longer than 40 years. We started in the 1970s, manufacturing asphalt emulsions, water-based aluminums and acrylics. And that's our specialty, is the water-based coatings. there's going to be a lot of contractors out there that are wondering about silicones and other formats, but our specialty is the water-based roof coatings and the roof coating systems. Our systems are energy savings. They're very eco-friendly. We have systems that are designed as short-term repairs all the way out to many years of life expectancy and guarantees. We pride ourselves in our customer support. We have people like Tim and others that work with him to train contractors, not just in how to put our systems down right, but how to run a job right and how to make money and production. And if we make a contractor profitable, then they like dealing with us. So they can take what we teach them and use it throughout their business. We also pride ourselves in our ratings and approvals. We spend a lot of our time in getting the kind of approvals that consultants and architects need for their customers, UL, Factory Mutual, and other ICCES. And finally, we specialize in our logistics in how we go to market with our products. We sell our products in everything from 5-gallon pails to 5,000-gallon tankers. We have a fleet of 50 5,000-gallon tankers that run up and down the roads and are parked on job sites for the large jobs that contractors do. So we're very attached to our contractor base and with support and technology.
That is impressive. I know we've at Roofers Coffee Shop, we have had the honor of working with you. Vicky's worked with both of you for many, many years, and I have just enjoyed learning about your company. And I know what value you bring to the contractors every day. So let's, Greg, let's keep it going. And I would love for you to talk about those tips that, you know, that whole thing of how you really make coatings success within all their contractors' businesses.
Well, when we're working with contractors, you know, there's three basic a platform of three basic items that help them in their application of a good quality coating job and or a fluid applied roofing job. Using the right equipment in the right place with for the right product to work efficiently, and that's a really tough one because there are many ways to go about it, and then to keep that equipment, maintain your equipment, and to keep it productive, because so many times contractors will do a job, you know, once every 3 months, once every 6 months. Is your equipment going to be ready in 6 months when you're ready to go out and do that next job? So maintaining it, having it ready for the next project is important. So that's the foundation that we'll be talking about.
Perfect. It makes sense. It makes great sense. So let's start with right equipment. What is the right equipment, and kind of take us through that if you wouldn't mind, Greg.
Okay. Most of the systems that we sell and specify are put down with spray equipment. They all can be applied with roller, brush, or spray, depending on the size of the job. If you're doing patio cover or a small flat residence, you might use a roller or a brush, but most of the stuff we do are commercial and large commercial, and that's where production comes in. So that's where you want to use the right equipment. And today, airless sprayers are the most efficient way to do that kind of a job, especially large jobs. In the past, when I started, we had air piston pumps. We had a big air compressor that ran a piston pump and converted that pump into a similar to what airless does. Now it's all done with hydraulics, and they're much more efficient. They're much smaller. You can put them in a smaller vehicle. A pickup is sometimes all you need to do a very large job. You want to decide what you're putting down, and so that equipment, you can get airless sprayers that put out it's gallons per minute against pounds per square inch. You want some products you want to go down at higher volume, so you want a larger gallon per minute pump, and some you want to put down at high pressure, so you want a high PSI to deliver your product properly to the roof. Our emulsions, which we do a great deal of, asphalt emulsions to do the waterproofing, go down at a low volume, a low pressure at a high volume. Those are applied as the waterproofing. We want to direct the emulsion without a lot of atomization, not a lot of overspray, and it's put out with a high volume pump. The acrylics are put at the opposite. They're put down at lower volumes but higher pressure. Higher pressure atomizes them and causes them to, you can direct them, they dry faster. The spray rigs, which we'll talk about a little bit further, make a big difference in that, and the equipment and the spray tips. The spray, having the right piece of equipment for the right material you're spraying can make all the difference in fighting the job or having the job flow easily. And finally, you can buy any airless sprayer will spray almost all of these coatings. You can go out and buy a very small hand sprayer that's airless that will put on any of these coatings, but you won't be efficient at it. You want to get the gallons per minute. You want to get into roof rigs. A wall coating airless pump that puts out 4,000 PSI will spray roof coatings, but you'll get a half a gallon a minute. You want to be up at the 4 gallon a minute to spray acrylics. So you want to be sure you have the right equipment.
Right, and that rig is really important. So Tim, maybe share with us a little bit. I know we have the Graco 733 here, and you really recommend this. Can you talk a little bit about that as the right equipment?
Yes, it's a very versatile machine. It comes with 2 lower ends. One is a 250, that's what you're applying your acrylics with. And then the other one, the brand new ones are 1017s. The older models are 1015s. The 17 and the 15 are how many gallons a minute the product is coming out. And when you're putting down any of our emulsion systems, it's all about getting product up to the roof so that the crew can be working. What happens when guys are using undersized equipment, say you have a 4-man crew and you got a pump that sprays 3 gallons a minute and you're trying to put down emulsion, which goes down at 6 gallons a square. Well, the guy's spraying and 3 guys are standing around doing nothing. But when you have the right pump with the right lower end, the crew moves across the roof in unison, and you'd be amazed at how many squares of roofing you can put down in a day.
By the way, that 1017, the 1017, it does have some meaning. That 10 represents 1,000 PSI max at 17 gallons a minute. So those numbers actually convert into something more practical. So that when we said that 1017, that's 1,000 PSI at up to 17 gallons a minute. So that's high volume, very high volume.
So, when you're in the time frame to buy a pump, just do your homework. Make some phone calls. I mean, a lot of the manufacturers of equipment will tell you, like Greg said, yeah, that'll spray emulsion, or yeah, that'll spray acrylic, but make sure you know what you're buying for because it makes all the difference in the world. The other thing that we think is very important is using filters. And a lot of the spray guns come with internal filters. We believe you filter before you ever get to the gun. So we filter all the products before it ever goes to the pump. This will make your pump last longer. There's a packing inside that wears down over time. And by using filters, you will lengthen the life of that time to change the packings. I mean, and that's something that'll stop the job. It takes a little bit of time to tear the pump apart and replace the packing. So the more gallons you can spray before that has to happen, is in your advantage.
The other thing is, back to the pump, the acrylic side of that is the high pressure, low volume. You know, that's at about 4 gallons a minute at up to 4,000 psi, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The acrylic lower end, and the reason there's a real specific reason to me why you want to use a high pressure spray when you're spraying, especially acrylics or a lot of the water based reflective coatings. A high pressure pump will cause that product to dry and cure faster and more efficiently. When you atomize that material, when it's coming out the end of that spray tip, and you've already caused it, actually what we call shear it, you're breaking it into small particles, it's already starting the evaporation process and the water's already coming out of that. So when it hits that roof, it adheres very well and it'll dry much faster. You can put down 1.5 to 2 gallons per square with a roller, and right next to it put down the same 1.5 to 2 gallons per square with an atomized high pressure spray, and the spray will dry 20 to 50% faster than the roller will, even though you put down the exact same amount. It's because you caused those, through that atomization, you've already caused the water to start leaving the product, and it cures and dries much faster. So that's something to keep in mind when you're buying your equipment and applying it.
Then the other thing that is just, oh, go ahead, Heidi.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Tim. I can't keep
Well,
going.
I was going to talk about the other thing with the pumps. So then you're buying hoses, and it's just very, very critical that you understand PSI ratings. When we're doing the acrylic, we're with the high pressures, and when we're with the emulsions, we're at much lower pressure. We recommend that you buy 2 different hoses, one for acrylic, one for emulsion. We don't want confusion. Number one, guys using a low pressure hose and then they start spraying high pressure acrylic out of it. And when we're working with guys, we'll tell them exactly what we recommend for a setup, what size hose, what the length should be. But it's ultra critical that you guys understand about PSI. There's been a lot of accidents because guys are not using the right equipment, the right hoses.
Yeah.
So very important.
And the size of the hose makes a big difference. People don't realize there's friction in a hose. Use a larger volume size hose, as you can see from the slide, a 3/4 inch hose for emulsion for most of the way with a 1/2 inch width. And what's the difference? A 1/2 inch hose would be just as good all the way, right? No, you actually get much more volume at the end of your gun because even though this is liquid and you don't think there's friction, there's a lot of friction that goes on in that hose. And using too small of a hose, by the time you get to the end of 300, 400, 500 feet of hose, you can have very low volume because of all the friction that takes place. So you use a larger diameter hose for the high volume and a smaller hose to keep the pressure up for the high pressure and lower volume products. So.
And I think the thing we want to get out there and the goal behind this is we're here as a resource for the contractors, and give us a call. We'll walk you through everything. We do it from buying equipment. We'll help you with recommendations to what we really specialize in is working with you up on the roof. And I don't think anybody matches the customer service that Western Colloid gives to its contractors.
And in this day and age, that is so important. It's just, that's what makes a business successful, is to have the relationship with the manufacturer that you provide to the contractors. And to understand the equipment and what's going on. And I do want to point out, because I know you, when we talked about this beforehand, both of you were really wanted to stress to be sure to use the proper hose rated for your spray pump. So make sure you put those two elements together also, right?
Yes.
Right, because we recommend these, but you could go out, they're actually, Graco makes a 6,000 PSI pump nowadays, and you could go out and get that pump thinking you could spray it a little higher pressure, but you the hose we just recommended here might not be the right one for that. So be sure you match your hose to your pump. And there's some very good pump suppliers out there that are very knowledgeable about the roofing side of it. You can buy pumps in any town, any city in the country, but ones that specialize in roof coating rigs are not as common. So be sure you make the right connection.
Yeah, because most of these guys, they're selling pumps that are, say, painting a house or painting a wall. And that's where you got to really know what you're talking about, because they'll tell you, oh, sure, it'll spray this, it'll spray that, but it doesn't spray it efficiently. And that's where the money is in your labor. And so you want to have the best equipment that's making you the most productive contractor you can be.
That's good. And I know speaking of productive, last year when we were at the RCMA meetings, a lot of the feedback from contractors of one of their biggest frustrations to manufacturers and vendors was when the tips they clogged and the spray wand and everything clogs up. So maybe, Tim, can you talk a little bit about that also? How do you stop the clog?
That's why we go back to the filters. We filter everything.
And by the way, there's inline filters that are available where you go from your hose, from your material supply. If you're spraying a 5-gallon pails, it's not as important, because out of 5-gallon pails, nothing dry. You don't get skins on the top or whatever. But when you're using drums or bigger, especially totes and tankers, you can have skins that form on the top, little particles that form, and you want to filter those out. And there's a filter you can put in the suction hose between the pump and the material, and that's what we're talking about.
And that's why we'd rather see you filter it there than a lot of the guns come with a filter before it gets to the tip, but it's in the wand or the gun itself. And those are very, very small, so they'll clog up fairly quickly. Whereas when we filter before we go to the pump, we're using pretty good sized filters that typically will last you all day. You shouldn't have a problem. And so you don't have downtime.
4 to 6 inches in diameter, they're readily available.
And so it helps in your production up on the roof, because you're not, taking apart a wand to clean out a filter. So, like I said, we really recommend filtering material.
And the other thing is, and most guys use this now, but not everybody does, is, and we didn't put this up on the slide, but just thinking about it, that picture you see there is the high pressure spray. That's a Reversa-Clean tip. And what that means, it's got a spray tip that if it plugs up, it has a little lever on it that you turn it off, you let go of the valve, you turn it, flip it, and it goes backwards, and it blows the clog out, and then you flip it back, so you don't have to take the tip off and clean it. The Reversa-Clean is one brand. They have other brands, but they all do the similar thing. So those help along the way too. And you can put the various size tips in that Tim will talk about.
And then for anybody who's looking, there's a various number of sizes of tips. I typically recommend anything anywhere from, say, an 841 to 867. It just depends on your job, how busy your roof is. You identify what's going to be the best. What happens, the bigger the tip, the more coating that's coming out. Greg can talk about real quick the orifice and the fan.
Those numbers actually mean something in all the different brands. 8 usually means the width of the fan at 12 inches from the tip of the gun. So 8, right, yeah, it would be 8 inches, 12 inches from the end of the gun, and the other two numbers are the thousandths of the orifice, 41 thousandths, 50 thousandths, 67 thousandths. So those actually have some meaning. They're not just a product code. So once you understand those, you can go out and buy them, and you can get a 637, which means it's a narrower fan. which means it's 6 inches wide, 12 inches from the end of the gun. And sometimes guys will use those narrower ones when they're doing detail work on a roof that has a lot of protrusions and wall corners and all that. They'll go around and do detail work first with a narrower fan, so they're not spraying big wide ends out. So you can buy tips that will accommodate your needs.
And why you want the right size tip is, like Greg said, a lot of objects on the roof, a lot of penetrations. When you put this down, when you're coming to the end of your path, you're tapering, or if you come to a curb or whatever penetration it may be, it's a taper fashion where you're feathering the coating from stop and start. What happens when there's a lot of things on the roof and you have a bigger tip, you end up putting down too much material because you don't feather it enough.
You just can't stop fast enough.
So it's really important to choose the right size tip based on what your roof looks like.
And of course, we're talking about the reflective coatings now, the acrylics and the top reflective.
Heidi, if you go back to that last slide, I want everybody to see what I'll call a contraption on the top. So that's 1/4-inch pipe fittings. And that is how we recommend you put down emulsion. It comes out in a really unique pattern that was literally discovered by accident a long time ago by me. And it's became what we do in the industry. We don't want to spray emulsion out of tips like we do acrylic or old V-Jet tips. We want to keep that a bulky, thick product.
But controlled.
We're able to put it down in 2 nice passes, and we've got all the material we need to embed our polyester.
And for $12 at Home Depot, you've made that tip.
Yeah, Greg hasn't bought one for a while. For $20 at Home Depot.
Brass went up.
Yeah. It's about $20, but that's nothing compared to, say, a V-Jet tip. So it's really inexpensive, but it works so well. And it's just, when we're talking about gallons per minute, this is letting out the maximum amount of emulsion we can get. The minute you put some type of tip in there, you've slowed down the flow.
Sometimes for old-time roofers, I compare this, and maybe new roofers won't understand this as much, but the old-time roofers who put down hot built-up are familiar with using a mop. And it would be like asking a hot built-up roofer to go out and put on a 500 square roof with a 2-pound or 3-pound mop. He could do it, but it would take him forever. They use 10 or 12-pound mops when they do big jobs. That's the same thing with this. You could use a spray tip to put emulsion down. It'll take you forever. This is a 12-pound mop, is what this is in roofing terms.
Wow, that is a tip alone right there that is huge labor savings. And I think everything you were talking about when you were looking at the equipment and looking at the spray tips is really, you need to look at that job before you even get there and really understand what needs to happen to be profitable and to, great operation. So Tim, talk to us a little bit more pre-job staging, setup, and training.
I can't stress how important pre-job inspection is. You show up on a job and you've never inspected beforehand, and you've just lost a ton of money because you have no idea. When you go to that job and you bring a crew, you've already formed a plan on how that roof's going to go on. And there's a lot of things that come into play. Setup is very, very important. So for us, we do a lot of tankers. But even totes or drums, you need an area next to the building where you can set up. We recommend 500 feet of hose. So depending on the size of your building, you want to stage properly so that you make the minimum number of setups necessary. Maybe you're able to set up in the middle and that's it. You can do the whole roof from one area. On the bigger jobs, that's not possible. And that's stuff that you want to get worked out with the owner or tenant way before you ever show up. So also in that is you already formulated a plan of how you're going to start the job, because we're working with water-based wet coatings. If you don't plan properly, you paint yourself into a corner. So it's really, really important to know where you're starting, how you're going to get off the roof. Otherwise, you end up working a half a day and you go, oh, I can't do anymore because now I got no way to get off the roof. So planning is very, very, very important.
And you want to have really good coordination with the building tenant or owner, as Tim said, because there may be cars parked down one side, and that's the side I'm starting first. So, hey, we need to have that side parking removed. So that there's nobody there, even though we're very careful and cautious. You don't have to get a lot of overspray with this putting down a coating job. Some people are scared to death. If you know how to do it and have the right equipment, you won't be painting cars or anything down below. But it's always best to know if you're spraying along one wall that, you know, the next morning we're going to start here. Let's don't park cars there till noon. Things like that. Hey, give me 3 parking spaces to stage my equipment and put my truck and my pumps. You get all that set up in advance, and they don't have a day lost of figuring those things out.
Yeah, so it's just, I wouldn't think about doing a roof job without pre-inspecting. It just, and what I like, you know, with the technology we have today is get a Google Earth image or any other program, and you have that map. And when I go up on the roof, I'm able to write on that map things that need to be addressed on the roof. It saves so much time.
And as for the crew, it's really interesting in that you can do a very large job with a very small crew with a fluid applied system like this. Some contractors that are used to doing modified bitumen, VUR, they're used to having 7, 8, 10 guys out on a 1,000 square job. You might do 1,000 or 2,000 squares with a 5-man crew. Just, you know, depending on the setup and that, but be sure you know the crew size you need, because it isn't labor intensive to do this kind of work. So,
and that's very important, because that's where all the money in this business is in your labor. That'll make or break you. So typically, I mean, I work with a lot of crews across the country, and most jobs are a 4-man crew. The only time I really bump up to a 5th man is if it's a really, really busy roof, got a lot of things on it. Then I can use an extra guy helping with some brooming and making cuts of the polyester fabric. But most companies, if they're running one crew, it's a 4-man crew size. Now, on a big job, you might throw 2 crews on it. One guy's working on one side, another crew's working on the other side. That's another way to get after it. But that's 2 pumps. But we have lots of guys that do that stuff. But if you're just starting out, you're more than likely just going to be a one pump.
Well, and what I'm really kind of hearing in this too is, with all of the things you're talking about with the pre-job staging, the setup, and the training, not only are you, because you know your crew size, because you know what's going to happen. I love the, printing out the aerial map. I'm one of the Roofers Coffee Shop community. One of our folks, partners on there, is Nearmap. So it really, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see here, it's not just about profitability, but it's also about limiting risk. I love that, know where the cars are parked, know what's going on. So a lot of great tips to really eliminate risk, and increase your profits.
Yeah, and again, when you said that's very important. That pre-job inspection is also your identifying all your safety hazards, whether they're skylights, no parapet wall, low parapet walls. Those things are very important to know before the crew ever shows up, so you're going to be able to provide the safety setup for the roof that's required.
And the liquid applied products, these fluid applied systems, are, as Tim said, they're liquid, they're fluid, and they can get on things. So pre-job setup is important, especially, for instance, skylights. Many crews will go out, they'll send a couple guys out for a day or two in advance with masking tape and visqueen to mask off skylights. We go out and show guys how to use a 15 to a 20-inch roll of stretch wrap, and one guy in an hour can stretch wrap skylights. It won't block off any light. That stretch wrap will stay stuck on that skylight for a month.
That's the key right there. So the guys that are going out and using visqueen and tape, I'm telling you, they're going to do it minimum of 3 times, because it's going to get windy one day and it's getting blown off. When you use the stretch wrap, it really doesn't matter how windy it gets. The way we cover it, it's on there, and then very easy to remove once the job is finished.
Sometimes you'll have to shut down some air conditioning equipment for an hour or two as you move across, so you don't want to have any of the atomization go into them. But you can use filters. There are filter media you can buy that can be wrapped around air intakes that eliminate not only the liquid but the odor. So and the products we sell have little or no odor. Emulsion has almost no odor. Acrylic has a very mild odor, like an interior house paint. It's very mild because it's diluted with a lot of outside air. But sometimes you have very sensitive buildings, and those can even be addressed. Like I say, you can buy charcoal filter media in rolls that you can put around air intakes and not have to worry about it shutting down buildings or getting people offended with odors. So all those things you kind of need to know. If you're doing a sensitive high-rise office building, or we do a lot of high-tech and a lot of bio industry, biomedical here in Southern California and the San Diego area, those are very sensitive. They have clean rooms. The tech industry has clean rooms. So you want to be prepared for air intakes and those kind of things. And that's all part of your pre-job setup and staging. And all those are easily addressable. And we help guys learn about that if they need.
That is perfect, because that really kind of goes into knowing the products you need, knowing what's going on, and now it leads us right into the importance of equipment maintenance. So Tim, maybe continue that conversation and talk about the importance of having your equipment maintained to again reduce risk and be more profitable.
Yeah, the equipment maintenance with the Graco pumps, that's why they're so good. They really run and run and run.
And we don't work for Graco. No. We don't sell Graco, but
but it's the only thing I will recommend. And there are a lot of other pumps you can use out there. I am sold on Graco equipment, so that's what I recommend, because I know it works, and it works very well. There's not, with a Graco pump, now they come with a Honda motor, so you have motor maintenance, which, just like a car, it's not a lot. Change oil, some filters here and there. That's not much maintenance at all. The maintenance really comes in your hose, and it just depends on how much you're going to spray. Your hose, when you cap and plug it, is an airtight line. So there's no reason to flush your hose if you're coming back the next day. It's airtight. Nothing's going to dry. You're able to just start the pump back up and you spray away. Where you want to get into flushing hoses is when, in my eyes, my opinion, my background of using this a lot, I literally have got to let that pump sit for more than a month before I'm ever even going to think about flushing a hose. I cap it and plug it, and I have no issues. That's up to the individual buyer of the equipment, what they want to do. But I'm just telling you from my history that cleaning hoses, if you're using the pump day in and day out, nothing takes place.
Yeah. And you want to be, you can be more conservative on that. You can flush it between jobs, but then you also have flush water. You have water you have to get rid of, and there are ways to do that goes into a whole nother webinar. But the more you do that, the more wastewater and that you generate. So a lot of times, if you seal it in a 5-gallon, why would you think that a 5-gallon bucket that you seal the lid on for 2 months or 3 months is any tighter than two ends of a perfectly sealed hose? Everything in there can stay well. Where you don't, like Tim said, you don't want to let it go over a season. You don't want to let go months in there. Then it'll start drying and building up. But it can sit in there for some period of time.
And then it's just cleaning your tips. What my crews did, scissors are probably our biggest tool. The pump is your biggest investment in this system. And from there, then it's literally nothing more than some brushes, some brooms, scissors, and I can't stress enough, scissors over any kind of razor knife when you're cutting polyester. Those tools, you go to break, the end of the day, I throw them in a 5-gallon bucket of water. In the morning, the brushes are fine. You just shake the water out, and the scissors, you literally can just take a rag and wipe all the old acrylic off it, and they're good to go for the next day. But it's important for your brushes and brooms to be in water or at least wrapped in a couple of trash bags. So you're trying to make them as airtight as possible so that they're reusable the next day.
Perfect.
And I prefer for the pump, for the motor itself, that's Graco's deal. So refer to your owner's manual on service for that.
And if you're mothballing your pump for a month or 2 or 3, you can refer to a Graco dealer or whatever, or any pump dealer. There are lubricants you can put into the pump itself so it can set for a long period of time. You may not want to leave just water sitting in it for 3 months or 4 months because metal can corrode. And
it will. There are balls inside the pump that will rust if you leave water. So Graco makes a couple of different products that you flush your line out and then you suck up a little bit of this liquid and it seals the inside of the pump and you're set to leave it sit for the next 6 months, get you through the winter or however long you're going to have it sit. So there's just not a lot of maintenance. If you just do the few things that need to be done, you're going to be golden. And those are all the kind of things that when you work with Western Colloid, especially when we come out on a job and are helping you, we'll go through all that stuff with you. We'll show you it all.
Because we don't just go out on jobs to help guys make sure they put our product down right to our specification. We do that. But that's not just why we're there. We also are out there. You can take what we teach you to go to our competitors and be successful. As much as somebody would maybe hate me saying that, that's the truth. We teach you to be productive because if you're productive, you're making money. If you're making money, you're happy. You're happy with us and you're happy with the product. So, that's a big secret. We don't try to make you jump through extra hoops just because we're the manufacturer, and we can. Because our specification says so. We teach you the right way, but sometimes the right way is also the fastest way. So,
you're leading us right into exactly, because that's what I hear over and over about Western Colloid is how contractor centric you are. So why don't you just, Greg, maybe finish us up here with why fluid applied, or a little bit more about Western Colloid, just kind of sum it all up for us.
Okay, well, we believe strongly, especially today, in this day and age. As I said, this isn't new. The original owner of our company started back in the late 60s, early 70s, doing these types of systems, and they were new and unique at the time. Now, with the climate that we're in as far as energy efficiency, landfills, it has all kind of come together for us. It makes sense today. The tear off, if you're doing, most of our systems are applied directly over existing roofs, as long as they're in decent enough shape to be attached and be stable. We can apply, our systems go over modified bitumen, single ply, PVC, TPO, EPDM, metal roofs, and gravel. Systems for gravel, which is kind of unique to us. A lot of systems don't go over gravel. Our emulsion does very well over gravel, where you don't have to tear off. We don't have dump fees. We're not filling up landfills. Our logistics are great because of our tanks and our totes, job sites. We're not shipping out truckloads of 5-gallon pails that have got to be thrown away in landfills, and we're not tearing off roofs that go into landfills. The material delivery, it saves on your roof loading. Everything is pumped up, as opposed to cranes and heavy loading of heavy materials. There's less chance of leaks on that roof because we're not going to tear off the old roof. We're going to make repairs to a roof that's existing and seal it up first, then put our system over it. So they're not going to be, even out here in California, it doesn't rain in California, but I guarantee it will rain when your roof's torn off. That's just the way it works. So not having to tear off a roof has less liability for the building owner and the contractor. And then what we end up with is a fully warrantable roof, everything from 5 years to 20 plus years, depending on the system. We're not new at this. As I said, we started back in the late 60s, early 70s, and have been doing it for 50 years. And we like to share our common sense installation, our techniques, our coatings, and above all, our product quality is, we think, is unsurpassed. There's a lot of good products out there, but we make one of the best. So we think it's, as we said, it's a win-win for everyone concerned. The building owner gets a good job and doesn't pay extra for it because he's saving on the labor. In many parts of sides of the industry, 2/3 of a job is labor, and 1/3 of the job is what's up there waterproofing your roof. We believe ours is the opposite of that. 2/3 is what they pay for and stays on their roof and gives them a good system. The other third is, as I always say, goes home every night and has a beer. It's the labor, and it's much less. So less labor, more product, and less cost to the owners, and good profitability for the contractors. This is probably one of the most profitable aspects of the roofing industry you can get into.
I'd like to comment on something that's really important. I think did you do hot in the old days, Greg?
I mean, I never applied it, but
okay. I grew up doing hot, and that's good hard work. That's what I'll say. Tearing off a roof, going back and mopping. So one of the really important things about this system, and it's very important in the industry, roofers are very, very high to insure. It's a dangerous job. This application of fluid applied is much safer. You're able to get, I don't know how the whole insurance works, but you're able to get your roofing crew under what's called waterproofing technicians and not roofers. And it will save you a tremendous amount of money on your insurance. The other thing, it actually saves wear and tear on your men. And I speak from doing both. Like I said, I grew up doing hot, and I moved to Southern California in 1981 and got hooked up with a contractor that did coatings. And I said, what the heck is this stuff? And after working with it for a while, I said, wow, I'd rather do this all day than tear off the roof. So there's a lot less chance for injury to your employees. A lot of the other roofing is very heavy materials that are being lifted. There's a lot of injuries that go along with some of that heavy stuff, repetitive work. We see it industry-wide. And I'll just say, you're not doing a lot of heavy anything with a fluid-applied system.
You may get a little bit dirty when you get the coating on. You're just like a painter, but that's probably the worst thing.
The dirt stays, well, not dirt, the coating stays up on the roof. You learn, and that's another thing we work with you, is the emulsion and the acrylic stays on the roof. You change your clothes before you go down and the ladder. most importantly, before you go in a building, if that's the only access, very, very important is that, again, pre-job setup. It makes or breaks you if you do it right. And we'd be happy to help you with some of that stuff. One thing I'd like to add is any questions you have, me, Greg, or a few other people around the company, a phone call and a picture goes a long ways for us to help you and answer any specific question you may have.
Wow. That, you know what? I'm sitting here listening to both of you, and it is just, it's really inspirational knowing the experience, real life experience, that you've done it, and now you're helping other contractors to really be successful in this area. And I've loved every part of this. All of your tips, all your thoughts, the conversation, I think just has been amazing. One thing I do want to, there's a couple things actually, because we're not letting you go yet. We got a couple of questions that are ready here. And I do want to let the audience know that these tips are actually in a brochure that Western Colloid has put together that is on our ebooks on rooferscoffeeshop.com under the RLW navigation. And so you can get these tips in a brochure, something that you can share with your employees, you can really look over, along with, obviously, as everyone, we're going to talk about again, you can watch this anytime on demand. But before we go there, gentlemen, we do have a couple questions. So I want to say, first of all, thank you. This has been so good. And let me get to one of the first questions that's come up. So hold on here. I'm pulling it up. And so this question came in when you were talking about equipment and the different tips and substrates and stuff. So just to clarify, should you be using different tips for different substrates? And along that same line, are there any substrates that you shouldn't be coating?
I'll let Greg, but silicone's probably our biggest nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much. Most of we have a system that goes over almost everything. The one thing you can't go over easily is silicone. Even silicone may stick to silicone, but even that is
labor intensive
and iffy, and has to be cleaned super well. But anything else, you can put it over PVC, TPO, EPDM, modified bitumen, gravel, metal. So you can go over it, and the tips is it just depends on the gallons per minute. Now you get into the specification. Are you putting down a light specification that you are just trying to get some reflective coating on? In that case, you might use a smaller tip where you make 2 passes on it. Or if you're going to put down polyester acrylic with a polyester reinforcement in it, you want the biggest tip you can get, because now I want to flood it a little bit. So a lot of it depends on the specification that the manufacturer is putting out there. But usually there's 2 or 3 tips that kind of cover everything as far as the reflective coating. And then for the fluid applying the emulsion, there's only 1 or 2 ways of putting that on for that we recommend if you have a high enough volume pump. So hopefully
Perfect.
That answered.
Okay.
Yeah, the substrate really doesn't make a difference. We're not changing tips.
As long as the product is the right product to adhere to. Because not every product sticks to every substrate.
Correct.
And that's where the manufacturer comes in, or we come in to specify a product that sticks to a specific substrate or a primer to use to adhere to it. So
that's where we get into a much smaller tip sometimes, is if we're applying a primer that's going down at, say, 1 gallon a square versus,
or even half a gallon
a square, just depending on what it
so
is.
then you want to really get a lighter, much smaller tip. So
excellent. Well, okay, so along that lines, Tim was saying, send us a picture, call us. Maybe you can share how's the best way to get a hold of both of you?
Well,
on the website, I think the information is.
Yeah. Tim's up there, and there's a link for his email. I'm up there, a link for mine. We've got Hal Leland, who does a lot of our technical work and testing and runs Northern California and the Pacific Rim. And then our salespeople in different regions all have a phone number and a email link. And we're all of us answer our phones. We're not leave us a message and we'll get back to you in the next 2 or 3 days. Most of us pick up the phone on that call, or if we're busy, respond to it within the next couple hours.
That's so important in today's world. Everything is moving so fast. And I will say too that Western Colloid, like I've talked about before, has been on Roofer's Coffee Shop for many years, and they have a full directory with contact information, all types of ways to get a hold. So there's a lot of different ways for people to find you. But I did have one other question that came in, and it was like, how would contractors buy your products?
We sell our products through distribution. So if at almost every major distributor, and there used to be a lot more distributors than there are now as far as brands. Most of them are Beacon, ABC, SRS. All of those are distributors, and many local distributors. So we sell through distribution, but we sell through distribution, but we deal directly with the contractor. We like to have a direct relationship with the contractor that's using our products. So even though you may purchase your materials from ABC, SRS, Beacon, you can deal directly with us. Don't feel that you have to deal with that distributor. And you might ask a distributor, because we're heavier in the West. We have a plant in Texas, we have a plant in Oakland, California, we have a plant in Los Angeles, and we have other distribution points of our own. But so we're much stronger in the West than we are in other regions. So if you go to another region, your local ABC here in California, Arizona, and Nevada, and those might know us very well, but they might not know us at all in Michigan or someplace, because we don't do as much business in the East or the Northeast. But they can obtain our products, and they can be shipped, but they may not have direct knowledge like the ones that use us day in, day out.
Well, you have a very consistent message of supporting the roofing contractors, which is what we believe in too. So I have to tell you today, again, I know I said it earlier, but this has been so informational and just a feel good on what you're doing to help promote solid roofing systems and working with the contractors to be successful. So I want to thank both of you for being here today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And so I would ask that everyone please visit Roofer's Coffee Shop and learn more about Western Colloid. Like I said, you can download their brochure on these tips under eBooks, which is under RLW. And we will also have this webinar. We will be turning it into a video webinar, which you can watch. We will have a podcast that you can listen to, and we'll have a transcript and ongoing blogs around these tips that you can read. It's all part of our Read, Listen, Watch, RLW series, and it's all about providing the education you want when you want it. So thank you so much. Have a great day.